Chapter 5. Lucas. The house had shifted into its own rhythms a few hours after breakfast, each couple settling into their chosen corner of the day. The sun had slipped higher, pouring across the wide windows and pooling warm light onto the wooden floorboards. Someone had cracked the back doors, letting in a lazy breeze that carried the faint scent of salt water and gum trees. On the couches in the living room lay Meyer and Ethan. They were all stretched out, tangled beneath a throw blanket. They weren't asleep exactly, but drifting. Their breaths slowed, faces tilted toward the muted hum of the ceiling fan. Across the way, Jordan and Camille had turned the open space near the kitchen into a makeshift gym. The sound of sneakers squeaking and the sharp exhale of jumps punctuated their laughter as they cycled through plyometric drills, egging each other on. At the dining table, there was Harper, who had gathered with Lucas, Elise, Noah, playing Rummy, a card game. A deck was soft at the edges, slid easily across the wood with each shuffle. Harper thrived in this setting, her laughter quick, her energy almost daring the others to match her. Elise was always steady but sharp-witted, sat across from her. Noah lounged beside Elise, casual but quietly competitive, flicking his cards with practical ease. Lucas sat opposite Harper, drawn in more by her insistence than his own enthusiasm. He didn't mind, though. Games had always held his interest, not for the thrill or chance, but for the neat logic beneath them. The way probability unfolded, how one choice tilted the odds. Sitting there, cards in hand, he could almost let his mind relax into the clean, manageable lines of strategy. Harper, by contrast, played like the table was her stage. She tapped her nails against her cards, narrowed her eyes dramatically before a draw, laughed in triumph when she made a set. Lucas caught himself watching her more than his hand. Her vibrancy seemed to animate the whole game, pulling even Elise's dry humor and Noah's sly grin into her orbit. "You're too obvious," Elise teased as Harper slapped down a run with a theatrical flair. "I can see the grin from here." "That's called charisma," Harper shot back with a smirk. She nudged Lucas's arm as though to draw him in. "Some of us bring personality to the table." Lucas raised an eyebrow, lips twitching at the corners. "Personality won't change the math," he said, laying down a neat sequence with clinical precision. Noah groaned and tossed her card aside. "See? He's not even playing rummy. He's counting cards like he's in a casino." Harper let out a theatrical sigh. "This is what I deal with. Every game's a stock exchange in his head." "Better than being reckless," Lucas murmured, though without heat. He placed another card, carefully stacked, his focus narrowing on the patterns in front of him. But the comment had loosened something at the table. "You're stone-faced," Noah said, with a grin, shaking his head, "like you're calculating moves 3 turns ahead. Do you just ever play for fun?" Laughter rippled, easy enough. Lucas let it pass, offering only a small shrug. He wasn't insulted. He had heard variations of that all his life. Quiet turned into distance in other people's eyes. Harper leaned back in her chair, the corner of her smile flattering before she forced it bright again. "That's just him," she said, but her voice carried an edge, always thinking, never really feeling. The words were dressed in playfulness, tossed lightly into the air like another card to the pile, but Lucas felt the weight of them settle in his chest. He glanced at her, searching her face. She was laughing with Elise and Noah, shaking her head like she had made an inside joke at his expense. Yet there was something in her eyes, a flicker he couldn't quite name. He laid down his next card slowly, his attention no longer on the game. The table's chatter blurred at the edges, voices merging into the background noise. His thoughts snagged on Harper's words, circling them. Never really feeling. It wasn't the first time he had heard something like that, but hearing it here, with others watching, made it ring differently, more true, maybe, than he'd let himself admit. Harper caught him gazing briefly, then looked away, tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear. She grinned at Elise, making some quip about luck favoring charm over strategy. The moment passed for everyone else, but for Lucas, it lingered, sharp and insistent. I couldn't get off my mind Harper's words. I tried focusing on the numbers, on what remained in the deck, on which suits were most likely in Elise's hand, but my concentration flattered. Harper's laugh pulled at me every time, bright on the surface, but ringing hollow underneath. Elise placed a set down neatly, catching Harper's eye with a grin. See? Luck. That's half the game. I shot a look at her, and I said no, before I could even stop myself. And then I blurted out, "It isn't luck, it's probability. You're drawing from a finite deck. Every choice narrows the outcome." Elise arched her brow. "You hear yourself?" she said, half amused, half incredulous. "You make rummy sound like a science experiment." Noah chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "That's Lucas for you. Always got the data ready. I bet you even keep scoring in your head when nobody's asking." The others laughed, but Harper didn't this time. She gave a little shake of her head, smiling though her shoulders sank almost imperceptibly. "Exactly," she said, her tone light, but her gaze fixed on the cards in her hand. "He's always measuring something. Even me." The comment slipped through me like a draft under a door, small but chilling. I blinked at her, unsure if she meant it as a joke or was she actually saying this right now, in front of everyone? Again, the others chuckled, Elise tossing a card into the pile, Noah making a crack about efficiency and love. I barely heard them. What did she mean, even with me? I felt the words echo catching against old habits. I had always thought logically. I'd always thought that was how you care. Anticipating what Harper might need before even she asked. Keeping things organized so she wouldn't have to. Solving problems before they ever appeared. That was love to me. Effort, steadiness, protection. But sitting there, I realized how it might look different from the outside. It looked calculated. She was making it sound like I was detached. Like I was holding her at arm's length, even while trying to hold her close. I looked at Harper again. Her face was animated, angled towards Elise and Noah, but her eyes flickered once again in my direction. I glanced so quick I might have missed it, except it landed squarely in me. Longing, faint and unspoken, the kind that made my chest ache because I didn't know what to do with it. I wanted to say something. I wanted to say something so bad, to reach across the table and tell her no that I did feel, that I felt so much it sometimes overwhelmed me. But words snagged at my throat, and so they didn't take form and nothing came out. It didn't take shape. I just sat there. It stayed quiet, and Harper turned back to her hand. The moment had passed. The final stretch of the game unfolded in a blur. Elise stood no chance. She still had a bunch of cards. Noah was close behind her with a handful himself. What I'd calculated was down to me and Harper. She played with a kind of urgency now, drawing and discarding quickly, her foot tapping against the leg of the table. I saw her fumble once, hesitate over a card before letting it go. Normally, I would have pointed it out, teased her about giving away her strategy. But I said nothing. I just watched. It was like I was watching myself, like I was watching us play. And this time, we weren't just playing rummy, we were playing the game of love. In that moment, she laid down her last sequence with a triumphant laugh, tossing her final card onto the pile. "Yes, rummy," she exclaimed, clapping her hands together. "Now that's how it's done." Elise cheered for her, and Noah groaned. The table broke into an easy chatter about rematches and luck swinging their way. I sat back, and I saw the card in my hand. Singular. By itself. Across the table, Harper's smile glowed, but it didn't reach her eyes. She looked at me just for a second, and the triumph wavered. There was something else there, something raw, a longing, a resignation. It struck me harder than the loss of the game. She looked away first, scooping up the scattered cards with Elise, laughing again as if nothing had cracked. Nothing had cracked between us. But I felt it. I knew it had. It wasn't just a game that she had won the hand, but in that look, in that quiet ache behind her smile, I understood. She no longer was going to play to win in our game of love.